to the Boise Convention and Visitor Bureau in 2 categories with 2 awards. In the category of brochure and guide for the Stay and Play Visit Bogus, wear this with pride. And then as one of our favorites, this is the 2nd one out of 3. In the, our favorite is the Boise Is campaign.
Congratulations.
And as you all know, those awards don't belong to Bobby Patterson, but they belong to a great committed staff that we have that tries to do the program. Once again, I can't stand before you and not acknowledge that our status, for lack of a better term, is up in the air. I know that all of our staff met with council in January as we looked at the 2nd half of our grant award, and I just come to you and say we are as committed as ever. There will be an election in Boise in 2 weeks from today, which we hope will make some changes in our ability to contract the auditorium district. So we've written our grant with great optimism that the Bureau will be fully staffed and we'll be doing our job at the maximum level that we've always tried to perform. So to go through our grant, which is written with no hesitancy whatsoever, but with optimism that we'll be able to continue to do great programs that the council's always been willing to support us on. Usually I would not even mention fulfillment, but I just need to say to the council, for those of us who are lucky enough to get significant grants, we've always maxed out at $25,000, whether you get $250,000 or $600,000, you get $25,000 in fulfillment. I think, not for this award, but I think the council's going to have to rethink that as we look at what's happened to postage rates. For us to mail a meeting planner, I just looked last week, it went from $3.40 to $4.95, and there's still some hard copy things, some hard things we're going to have to do. So at some point the council may want to take a look at maybe increasing that by 5 or 10% to allow those of us with large programs to still meet our fulfillment needs. As I go through our grant, I try to do this very quickly. We've not changed the headers on our grant elements under the general term of marketing. We have most of our direct sales and marketing programs. And I will tell you, as someone who stood before this council since the early 1980s, I don't think we've ever been in a time of more confusion and more change on how people buy, how one communicates, how you make sales decisions. The more communication vehicles there are, the more confusing it gets about how people buy and how they. And the problem is there's so many niches within niches. You've got to try to address them all. So, but the first thing that is in our marketing element is marketplaces. Even there we see dramatic change, where we've seen a lot of organizations go from the traditional trade show exhibit sort of situation to more appointments. We've really stepped up, and there's 3 or 4 new marketplaces niche to religious and corporate and SMERF, where you really have very one-on-one appointments where it's a match sort of thing. So we see that influencing the marketplace, and we've still got to be in the trade show side of it. So again, you've got to react to all of those different market buying opportunities. I think the appointment is going to influence in the future all of those, and we're beginning to see even in displays where you can have appointments within your booth display. So you got to keep track of all of that. Under marketing, probably the most successful thing for us as a city is anything that we can do that brings people to the community, whether it's a site visit or a fam trip. People who come almost always, even if they don't book, they become great supporters of Boise and Idaho. And so those are the programs that we need to be really aggressive about. We have a separate niche in our marketing for sports. For us, sports is huge business. Great examples are, excuse me, we have Far West Soccer Tournament coming this summer. We have 3 big soccer tournaments. Far West alone is 6,400 room nights. So we really are putting a lot of emphasis on sports as we go through this whole thing about what's our convention center doing about their marketing. So that's in our direct marketing. Direct mail, I did put in your packet, I can back up a minute. I think as the largest grant recipient, we have a huge responsibility to council to report to you what we got done, what our return on investment was. So there is a sheet in there that really talks. I want to explain to you that the 2009-2010 grant for us, actually we extended through December. So the results on the new grant really are probably much more numbers that really started in December and January. But we continue to try and drive those numbers and report out to you. In our direct mail last year, our goal was to say to meeting planners, how do you want to get communications? How do you make decisions? And so I did put in there under the 2010 market survey for your information. One of the things that stood out to me is that a lot of them don't have a preference. You know, they want to get the magazines, they want to get electronic, they want to call them, you know, no choices is often. But one thing that stood out to me is that how do meeting planners make decisions? Two highest things, board of directors recommendations and word of mouth. So that what that said to me is you cannot take people out of the formula. You still got to have the relationships and the contact, no matter how clever you get about electronic. That's still how they're the most influenced. So we go from marketing, we really talk about advertising. We try to be fairly detailed about the segments. We try very hard to match our advertising placements with editorial copy that will either cover a certain marketplace, or we're talking about the West, or we're talking about the Northwest. So the placement complements the editorial coverage in the magazines. We don't do as much consumer as a lot of grant recipients, put a lot of effort into the group marketing, meetings, conventions, groups where one sale will bring several people to the community. So that's really our advertising scheme. I don't think there's anything more confusing than communications today. You know, there are so many sources. We sat here and talked about this new kind of internal texting. The challenges for a DMO like us is that we don't own any products, so anything that we send out electronically, if John says if you come to his restaurant you're going to have a great prime rib, he can guarantee that. What we have to be really careful about is because we don't deliver, we've got to be really, really careful about what we promise. So ours is more information. Whenever I say the white clouds have great prime rib, guys, it's going to be there, right? Not to bias that at all, but I guess for a DMO, that there's two challenges. One, factual information that you can back up without promising an experience that you can't deliver, but somebody to provide that accurate information. You know, it's really full-time. That communication link, the Twitter, the Facebook, the blog, all of that's got to be well managed within a not-for-profit environment like ours, but you still got to be there with all of it. So I find communications to be the hugest challenge of all, because you can't overlook any of the niches. You really got to manage them all really well. Within our website, I think we have, I heard the Jackrabbit people this morning say that a website really needs to be functional, which means somebody has to really be able to do all the things they want to do on there. Talking about booking rooms, talking about packaging, talking about easy click-throughs. One of the things we hope to do with our website this year is add 12 months of Boise every year, doing a new virtual sort of experience. We have added 7 or 8 new virtual tours that 360 people have done to our website, so that people can virtually experience Boise in the area. So that's a communications issue. We continue to be good, try to be good partners, so we have a partnership element in our grant, which is really us taking advantage of exposure through something that somebody else creates, whether it's the golf tournament or the bowl game, where we can, on a national scene, through communications, television, radio, print, really promote Boise as a destination through somebody else's activities by us being a partner with them. We also have a sponsorship. There are certain things that will only happen if you indeed have some seed money and encourage an event to happen in your community like Ironman. So we continue to add that to our grant. Then we try again to go to the cultural side of our community and rather than having the museums, associations, etc., come in for material, try to go to the cultural offerings in our community and partner them within. We keep oversight. We don't do them as sub-grant recipients. We really try to keep oversight of the programs. One of the things we did in our grant this year, we stepped up, was recently announced, did some sponsorship with Trey McIntyre. For those of you who don't know, Trey McIntyre is a great national dance group who has moved to Boise. Questions, and it came from New York, their challenge is why would you go to Boise? The reason we stepped up and sponsored them for a concert they'll be doing in Lincoln Center in DC, or in New York, I'm sorry, is because of the amount of exposure of why they came to Boise will be an important part of that message. We can't buy space for time in New York without that, so we figured that's a really good investment for us, saying, this is why Trey McIntyre came to Boise and you ought to come too. I think she's waving a flag at me, so I'm trying to go as fast as I can. I'm happy to answer. I thank you for our awards. I did include some copies of our ads, and I think the advantage of this ad campaign to us is it's one message with a lot of applications. So I tried to show on there how it can be applied to sports or meeting or group tour or whatever the message is. Also did include a copy of the dashboard from our website so you can see the use on that. Happy to answer your questions.
Bobby, 1 second left.
Oh my God. I deserve a ribbon just for that. Happy to answer questions. I'm sure you must hopefully have some questions for us.
Comments or questions from the audience?
Well, you know what? My message from the staff at the Bureau is tremendous appreciation for the support that this council has given to our organization in spite